Welcome back to Objective 8 in Chapter 11 of our 3B1 series. In this objective, we'll describe the design, components and operation of a dealkalization system, including chemical reactions. So, what's the big deal then about alkalinity in boiler feed water? Well, a lot of this we've talked about previously. Now, alkalinity in feed water is going to impose the limits on the number of times the boiler water is able to be concentrated before carryover is caused by foaming and priming caused by a high TDS. Now, what is the number of times the water can be concentrated? That's the cycles of concentration that we discussed in an earlier objective. Now, the second reason is that our alkalinity species can also break down and release free carbon dioxide. That will then be reabsorbed into the condensate in the condensate return system and cause carbonic acid to form, which will lower our pH and then cause carbonic acid attack in the condensate return system. So these are the reasons why we may wish to reduce the alkalinity in our boiler feed water. Now, the way in which that is done is using a dealkalization system or a dealkaliser. And the basic way in which this works is that we have a flow controller that will monitor our feed water flow and proportionally add in sulfuric acid to depress the pH to near free mineral acidity. Now, what is free mineral acidity, or FMA? This is a point on the pH scale of 4.2 to 4.4. So we always sort of split the difference and say 4.3. At free mineral acidity and below, alkalinity does not exist. So there are no carbonates, bicarbonates, or hydroxide species at free mineral acidity. That acid now is going to be mixed in to bring about this drop in pH to remove our alkalinity by means of an inline static mixer, which is basically a pipe that looks like it has a corkscrew in it, and as it all goes in, it turbulates the water all up so our acid mixes with our water. You see static mixers used in a lot of process plants. Now, the idea here is that we have to monitor that pH to ensure we only add enough acid required to get us down to that free mineral acidity point. And also, of course, making sure we inject enough acid to get us into the pH of free mineral acidity, which ensures we have removed our alkalinity. Now, the bicarbonates and the carbonate species of our alkalinity, these are going to be converted into H2CO3, which is carbonic acid. And similar to the hydrogen zeolite softener, the water containing our carbonic acid now is going to have to be passed through a degasifying tower to remove that CO2 by aeration. Now, the rest of it is going to be addressed because we now have to neutralize this very acidic water that we've got down at the point of free mineral acidity. And we do that by neutralizing it with sodium hydroxide, which of course contains hydroxide alkalinity, and it also thereby raises our pH, and this is done in a receiver stroke storage tank. Now, we can see this idea here in figure 10 of your textbook on page 18. And when you initially look at it, you think, well, that's a hydrogen zeolite softener, isn't it? And the answer is, well, yeah, it pretty much is. They have a lot of similarities here in between them. So what we can see here then is we have a hydrogen zeolite unit regenerated again using sulfuric acid, passes through as hydrogen zeolite effluent out of there, which will be our acidic water, depressed to the point of free mineral acidity, passes through our degasifier to strip off CO2 by aeration, then into the tank at the bottom, where it will then be neutralized using typically sodium hydroxide or caustic. Now, you might be thinking, well, hang on, if I strip out all the alkalinity and you now put sodium hydroxide back in, aren't you just increasing the alkalinity again? And the answer is yes, but with different species. Don't forget we have bicarbonates, which there are many, we have carbonates, of which there are many, and then we have hydroxides. So you can think of it very overly simplified as we're changing out the bad alkalinity that will break down and cause our carbonic acid and CO2 release, and we replace that with a better alkalinity that won't cause us issues, putting in our hydroxide alkalinity. There's a lot more to it than that, and you'll get into this more as you move on and do your second class. But at third class level, we can kind of get away with simplifying it like that. There isn't a lot of information in the third class book regarding dealkalizers, so I don't want to go into them too deeply because they are chemistry heavy. Okay. So let's take a look at our chemical reactions. Now initially, of course, because we're using a hydrogen zeolite softener, then all of the equations that relate to the hydrogen zeolite softener are going to be the same as they were back in Objective 7. That is, our sulfates are going to turn into sulfuric acid, our chlorides will turn into hydrochloric acid, our carbonates turn into carbonic acid, and our nitrates turn into nitric acid. That's all the same. Now I've just selected one of those equations here to display, and that's the one for calcium bicarbonate, but it would also be the same for magnesium bicarbonate as well as sodium bicarbonate. And this is going to form zeolite calcium, and also our carbonic acid, H2CO3. And that's what's going to be stripped off in our degasification tower by the process of aeration. Now our set of new equations here are going to be our alkaline neutralization, and this is where we're basically adding our sodium hydroxide into the effluent of our hydrogen zeolite softener once it's been dealkalized. So for equation 1 here, we've got sulfuric acid is being added to sodium hydroxide, i.e. caustic, and we end up producing sodium sulfate and water. In our second equation, we've got hydrochloric acid. That one's coming from our chlorides. We now add our sodium hydroxide and we produce sodium chloride and water. Now, sodium sulfate and sodium chloride, these aren't a problem in our boiler because these can easily be removed via blowdown and using again a precipitating treatment. The third equation, however, is not so simple. This one is silicic acid added to sodium hydroxide is going to form sodium silicate and water. Now, where does silicic acid come from? Silicic acid comes from silica in the water that hydrolyzes, i.e. reacts with the water. And we end up forming this silicic acid. Now, silicic acid, when it combines with our sodium hydroxide, causes a problem in that it causes sodium silicate. And the reason why we don't want sodium silicate is because this will produce an extremely hard and tenacious scale in the boiler. And it can also carry over and cause silica scaling downstream in end of steam users, like steam turbines, for example, when the pressure drops below 4150 kPa. So because we're producing sodium silicate on the effluent of this thing, that will have to be addressed in some other way. So how could we do that? Well, the easiest and most common way of dealing with it would be with a reverse osmosis unit. So those are our chemical reactions that are now leaning itself towards a dealkaliser, where we neutralize our solution using sodium hydroxide or caustic. Now, we can summarize all that up in saying that our sodium sulfate and sodium chloride produced in reactions 1 and 2, not a problem, because we can precipitate that and simply blow it down. They're not hard scale causing compounds. The sodium silicate, however, that one's a problem. It will cause hard scale and it does need to be removed before it gets to the boiler. Now, how do you remove it? Well, I mentioned one method, reverse osmosis. There are others, of course, like EDI, electrodeionization, or ED, electrodialysis. There's all sorts of ways it can be addressed. Don't forget, we can also remove some of this upstream, for example, in, say, a lime soda softener, because that will also reduce the amount of silica in the water. Won't remove all of it, but it will remove a good chunk of it. Now, these dealkalizers can be easily retrofitted or tacked on to an existing softening system, i.e. a hydrogen zeolite softener. This will lower the TDS, unlike our sodium zeolite softener, and of course, there is no regenerant waste stream going down because it's all being neutralized. So our efficiencies, of course, are up around that 90% mark, a lot more efficient than, say, the 30 to 40%, just due to the sheer volume of water we put down the drain from a sodium zeolite softener. Okay, so that's really all we need to go into, really, regarding dealkalization. You will get into this in a bit more depth at second class, but for those of you that are wanting more information about them, I would refer you to what's a textbook called the NALCO Water Handbook that you can find in the library. And that will give you an awful lot more information about dealkalizers and the similarities and tie-ins they have to hydrogen zeolite softeners, as well as any other questions you have water treatment related. That is the go-to book for water treatment regarding boilers and cooling water for that matter. Okay, so let's take a look at our Objective 8 review and let's check out some typical sorts of questions you're liable to see. So for our first one, in a dealkaliser, what is used to neutralise the effluent? Is it sodium zeolite effluent, sodium hydroxide, carbon dioxide, or sodium silicate? Well, we just got through talking about it, and it's the one that's in every single one of our three chemical reaction equations. And that is our caustic, otherwise known as sodium hydroxide, which of course contains hydroxide alkalinity species. Next one. A dealkaliser uses a something exchanger. Is that a cation, an anion, a sodium zeolite, or a weak acid cation? Bit of a nasty question, this one. Well, first of all, what kind of exchanger is used in figure 10? It's a hydrogen zeolite unit. What is a hydrogen zeolite? Is that cation exchange or anion exchange? Well, it's exchanging our calcium and magnesium cations with hydrogen ions. So therefore, this one is a cation exchange. Yes, it's also a weak acid cation exchange, being more specific, but they're getting at here, it's just basically a cation exchanger. The weak acid and strong acid goes a little bit beyond the scope of third class. Okay, next. In a dealkaliser, CO2 is removed by what? Split stream softening, alkaline neutralization, demineralization, or degasification. It's another question relating to figure 10. We have to remove it via degasification in a simple degasifying tower, and we do that by simple aeration. That is a counterflow action of the water flowing down over packing and the air being blown up. And then we get our effect known as aeration, which, as you might recall, it not only addresses CO2, it also addresses iron, manganese, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, as well as bacteria. Very powerful treatment method, aeration. Next one. Silicic acid and sodium hydroxide form something and water within a dealkaliser. Well, this is a straightforward question from our three chemical equations, which of course is only straightforward if you can memorize those three equations. So the one with silicic acid in it is going to form sodium silicate, and that's the one that causes that very hard tenacious scale that causes deposits in our boiler. Next one, this is the follow-on question. Sodium silicate is an undesirable product of a dealkaliser. How could it be removed? Sodium zeolite softening, RO, degasification, or pressure filter. The only one on that list that's going to remove silica is going to be reverse osmosis, as RO units will remove 99% of pretty much everything. Okay, so that's it for Objective 8. A fairly quick one, but again, you've got more chemical equations there to get to grips with, and also a lot of similarities to the previous objective in Objective 7 when talking about hydrogen zeolite softeners. So give this one a review, and then when you're ready, let's come back and put all of this ion exchange stuff together and look at a unit that uses both cation and anion exchanges, and that, of course, is a demineralizer. So see you back to that one next. Take care.